Well, good afternoon, and here we are. I'm getting ready to talk with Janet Steinberg, who is in Cleveland right now. Boy, Janet's been all over the country. She can tell you about that in just a minute. Uh, but I didn't know they had palm trees in Cleveland, though. Okay, oops. I love your background. Okay, so anyway, I'll start out by asking you to tell Janet to tell us about your background, your Facebook group, all the work you've done over the years in various curriculum, and now you're into doing a variety of curriculum, and you're all over the country right now as we get ready to start up. And
Yeah.
later on, I'm going to ask your advice for starting up because
Okay.
you've been there, you're out there seeing what's going on right now, this second, in many different parts of the country. So,
Yeah.
boy, that all said, how about we turn it over to you and you tell us about your background, your Facebook group, some of your travels, and just to get a general idea of the background you have. And I would mention we've been longtime friends, and I've learned a
Yes.
lot from you and your group. Okay,
Yeah.
so here we go.
Thank you. It's mutual, Sam. Definitely learned a lot from you. Still am. My name is Janet Steinberg. I actually started in the Bronx. I worked in I guess what people call the South Bronx. I was a teacher for students who were below benchmark, special ed, etc. And we started out actually as an SFA school. SFA. If you don't know what SFA is, it's kind of like where they have stations and you do phonics, phonemic awareness, etc. As I was at that school, we started foundations. I'm not even going to date myself, a long time ago. And then we realized in that school that foundations and phonics wasn't enough. And we started to bring in balanced literacy, which I know is a bad word, but it did work. What happened was that we actually created our own reading rope. We had phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, and language comprehension, and writing. And that actually brought success for the kids in the school. We were a school that was about to be closed. I didn't know that that was my first teaching job. I didn't know they were going to be closed. I had no idea what was happening. And then within 2 years, once we brought everything together, our kids grew in test scores, etc. So kids can pass the test if they're taught a well-rounded education. Um, as I was in the Bronx, I won two awards, one for Big Apple teacher, best teacher, and one for the New York Post. I started getting into assessments and data and testing. And I became a literacy coach for the New York City DOE and Region 1 in the Bronx. And I travel around to schools and did a lot of looking at the kids and data. Working with testing companies, I got the pleasure of working with ETS. Got to work with Randy Bomer, got to work with Catherine Bomer, his wife. I got to work with Lucy. I got to work with a Silky Nia. I got to work with like all the name brands. Even Tim Rosinski came to our school in the Bronx, District 10.
Oh,
And
wow. So you had the whole gamut there.
oh yeah. And we learned so much. I mean, so much. But the one thing that we always maintained is that phonics was important, which is why I get so confused when people say phonics is new. I've worked in the Bronx all my life, and we've always done foundations and phonics. As I was in the Bronx, one of the things I realized is I also have three kids. And this is going to sound funny, but the regions, I was in the regional office and the regions were about to close. Now I had the choice of becoming a building administrator, going to work for Central, or paying for college. One of the things that I did was I always did workshop work anyway, and someone brought me over to Columbia University. Now I'm going to tell you a side note. It helped me pay my college tuition. But I'm going to tell you another side note. It opened up a world to me that I would never turn back on. As I was at the Columbia University working with Lucy and with Mary Aaronworth and with so many others, I got to learn more about writing and writing workshop. I'm the type who hated writing. Hated it. Red marks, hated it. One day I wrote about being a waitress just to get some attention because otherwise everybody put me in the low groups. I was a low reader. I did SRI in school, SRA, I mean, in school. So one of the things that I got to do was figure out why writing was so important. And then I actually brought a lot of my skills from the Bronx to the project. I wrote two or three books. I got to work on the standards, which I think because I was at Columbia, I had that opportunity to really be part of the conversation. Um, Not the Common Core, the state standards in different states. I got to write test questions, write for the test, do range finding, look at texts, do so much. I got to meet so many people. Um, and I also got to stay true to myself because while I was there, the same thing as what I learned in the Bronx. No curriculum ever is totally beautiful. If you find one, let me know. But it's about the kids and good practice. And I've been bringing that around, especially when I look at special ed or interventions, because there's always beautiful in every kid, and we need to be able to find it. And I think any curriculum could work if you have good practice and you don't go against what you truly believe, especially when you see your kids in front of you. This summer, I've been traveling around, speaking, leading workshops, writing tests, working with educational groups, etc. It's been a busy month. But the picture behind me, everyone knows I love Florida and I love the ocean. So this is actually Delray Beach, my secret spot in Florida. And whenever I do any work, and this is a message to teachers and everybody too, I can look at the ocean and it's my happy place. So I know things are going to be okay, right? So that's why the picture is there.
Okay, well, everything's going to be okay. And that's just an amazing set of background and what a variety of experiences and training you have and training that you're giving. And I know now that you've gone beyond just doing any one particular curriculum. You're training people in multiple curriculums. So
Yes.
this uh, brings me to my big question, and that is, gosh, what's happening already in some places and probably going to happen in 2 weeks? And I'm going to answer my own question. School starting. Okay. And we've got to get, oh, yes. So, and we have lots of teachers. We have experienced teachers out there. We have brand new teachers out there, and they we are in turbulent times. That's an understatement. So,
Yeah.
we just had this conversation ahead of time where I said I'm very much uh, not for teacher proof curriculum, but rather I'm for teacher empowering curriculum, curriculum that gives the teacher some leeway in what to do, not total freedom. You know, the district does have its standards, all the rest, but where there's a chance to grow. So, assuming that kind of a situation, knowing everything all your background in literacy and the rest, can you give us some? If you're the reading teacher experienced, or you're the reading teacher beginning, what kind of things should you be making sure of and doing to get yourself and your class and your classroom ready for the start of the school year? Take it away.
So, I always think like in the beginning of the year, it's not about the curriculum. It's about welcoming the kids. It's about exposure to books. It's about just getting them writing. It's about making sure that they feel inclusive. For new teachers and old, and I know old teachers do this, find out about your kids. Find out like some of the things they love, some of the things that bother them. Find out where they're from, their cultures. I think in the beginning of the year, we have to make sure that we have books that attend to every student and what they love. We have to have charts that are teacher made, not handmade. And some of those charts should not be prescriptive. They should just be welcoming charts and charts that review what happened the year before. One of the things that I've seen a lot of teachers have great successes in is charts that review what they ended up with in the grade before and then move forward. Because I think kids come in at different places. Some had a great summer, some didn't have such a good summer. But they all were in school last year, and that's something they need to remember. I think teachers have to believe in themselves. Good practice is good practice. And one of the things you heard me say is that I got to stay true to myself. And I know I drove my old boss crazy with that, but it's what you believe and what you're going to do. So one of the things you might do is look at your new curriculum, walk through it, say what really resonates with me, that really makes sense. Like, what do I believe in? And then what do I have to see if the kids really could do, or if the kids, if this will help my kids. Sometimes the curriculum is too below level, believe it or not. We have some really smart kids in the Bronx, in Georgia, and Atlanta, across the country. And I think sometimes we underestimate the kids. And sometimes we might have to create scaffolds to help our kids, accommodations. I think one thing that I always look towards is thinking about who are the kids in your class, and we have to start knowing that, thinking about where did they end up? I know we hear test scores, test scores, test scores are terrible, but one of the things that I think about is that I'm in a lot of schools where there are kids who were below benchmark and they grew. And you know what? We have to give credit to the kids who do grow, because I think sometimes testing is a testament to what they've did learn. I think we also have to think about other assessments. Maybe finding out like what kind of accountable talk they have. Are they artists? Um, do they like to sing? Do they play basketball? I know that I had a lot of kids in my class who wanted to be radio DJs. So along with the program, we brought in a radio program. I had a student I found out who investigates everything, whether good, bad, or indifferent. They investigate everything. So we actually became part of the DA program because there were other kids invested in it. It doesn't always mean that you can't step out of the box for the needs of your kids. It means that we have to know our kids and when to bring these other things in to help them. I always think of the culture of thinking. I always think of give yourself time to explore ideas. When you work, think about how long are you going to give kids to like talk about what they know, to have wait time, and to make sure the vocabulary is the same as the younger grade. Give opportunities as you go across the year for a DA program or for a radio broadcast, or let them act at Lincoln Center, which we did, right?
Wow.
Give opportunities. Yeah, we danced, we wrote our own play using writing workshop. We were able to create our own beautiful play, and kids danced, they sang. Ones who drew. They read parts so that every modality was tapped and they were able to feel success. Give them those opportunities. Let them design their own way. Use technology. Don't be afraid of it. Make sure that when you're using technology, though, it doesn't take your job. Because one of the things that I noticed is AI sometimes could be taught too much, and we need to make sure that we understand what AI is saying. Um, Give yourselves and the students time at the beginning of the year for interactions and relationships, and not with their best friends. What I mean is there should be a way to respect and value everybody's ideas and what they say. And there should be expectations where we should start thinking about clear expectations for the level of thought we expect. I expect very high level. I won't accept low level. Think about what your level of thought is, and think about like when do you want work completed? What's your agenda of understanding? I particularly hate homework, but if you love homework, what kind of homework will make sense for the kids? When you're going to model, and when are you going to let the kids do it themselves? Because sometimes I think that we do it too much. When do you release the rein, right? And think about the kids from other cultures, the language, reflective vocabulary, and your physical environment. My environment, I had no desks. So you're going to think I'm crazy, which most people do. But in my classroom, we had a carpet, a beanbag, a couch. Kids sat on the floor. We had one round table for kids who needed to sit on the round table. I had some kids who had ADHD. They needed to move. So we had those moving tables. We had like a living room. There was a light. There was chairs. And you know what? My kids succeeded because they were in a space where they needed to feel like they were part of the family and the community. What space reflects your ideals? I mean, I could go on and on, but I'm gonna
Okay.
stop there.
Well, I'll talk about one harsh reality, and then I'll get into your thoughts about the current state of affairs in literacy, because I've got some questions around that. But the ugly reality sometimes is that depending on what curriculum is being adopted and how, there might be there basically I kind of categorize things as teacher-proof curriculum versus a teacher empowering curriculum. And there seems to be a propensity right now to go with the teacher-proof curriculum. If it's Tuesday and it's 9:30, you better be talking about XYZ in highly scripted programs. Uh, if you find yourself in a situation where you have these highly scripted programs, how do you survive?
So, in my reality in teaching, and we were talking about it, I think that newer teachers, or there are some teachers around the country who could use a scripted program, who do need that kind of scaffold. And until they learn to like develop their own skills, just like doctors who train, they have their time of internship, then they have their time of fellowship. I think teachers need that kind of scaffolded work oftentimes because it is hard to teach and especially when you have kids with multiple pathways and multiple modalities and come from different countries, different emotional issues, etc. Um, I think that there is a time where, as an experienced teacher, you realize that you could have any scripted program, but you have to be careful not to follow the script entirely and follow your heart. So I don't believe that once you get to know your kids, etc., a program has to be followed like soldiers. Now, here's the caveat. There are scripted programs across the country. People do come in, they do these learning walks, these instructional rounds. I kind of think, is that new? Or is that something we used to do? And when they do the instructional rounds and learning walks, what happens afterwards? Is it intentional? Do they tell you you have to follow the program exactly? Or do they say, look at the data and differentiate? So, in the times now, as I'm going around the country, and I did say this to Sam before, what I'm noticing is that the teachers that really were experienced before know their kids, know what to do, are still doing good practice. Teachers who needed this script, God bless them. Like sometimes you just need something to follow. When I was a new teacher, I was a deer in headlights, 38 kids in the Bronx. I had no clue what I was doing. I definitely needed someone to tell me to follow a script. Um, for the teachers that don't need a script, then do what good practices. Use the curriculum to help your students succeed and do what you need to do to keep pushing them forward. Don't take away books from them. Don't stop reading. Don't take away writing from them. Let them write. Give them some of these extra programs. Give them opportunities. Do inquiries. Like create projects. I know they say knowledge building. To me, it's thematic studies. But my kids had a great time making things, revisiting we revisited Colonial Williamsburg in my classroom. We had a multicultural dining experience. No one liked my cooking, but it was very good. Bring other things in to supplement so that kids are engaged. And when you do the curriculum, find the sweet spot. Like if it says read 20 pages and you know you could get it done in 6 pages, go for it. It's just what we consider good practice.
Okay. And so what you're finding is that, and because you've been to, I won't ask you to list them all, but you've been to a lot of different places this summer, and you're finding there's are still places where what you're talking about is possible. Uh,
Yeah.
okay. So that said, now let's get into a little more, might be semi-controversial things. And basically, your thoughts about the current state of affairs and things in literacy. Um, top of my list is banning effective programs. And you know the example I'm talking about,
Yes.
mandating programs over all others so that you have to use this particular form of phonics. And finally, the whole issue of qualitative versus quantitative research that we have, especially in the last 2 decades, pretended that qualitative research is lesser and has no value in informing instruction, in spite of some things where I think it does. So those are three different things. Let's start with banning of effective programs. Is that
So,
is that a good
yeah,
thing?
that's well, I think one of the things is when you pick a program, it should be based on your kids' needs and your community of learners. I don't think there's any program that could say they're the best. I don't think there's any program that might be terrible. Well, maybe there is one or two, but not really. I think that the biggest thing is that if a program shows success within 3 to 5 years, then that program should not be banned. We should find out why it's successful. What is it doing well, and what does it need to do next? I think also that when you're looking at a program, you really have to make sure teachers are actually doing the program and know the program. I think a lot of times teachers say, I'm doing this program or that um, because it's the label that they use in the school. So you have to make sure that when you're judging a program, they actually are doing the program and their judgment is real. I think the third thing is that you have to make sure that the program is following the mandates of the state, is following the standards, etc. But I think like I love the knowledge, the reading rope, and I do like the writing rope. One of the things the reading rope says to me is that a program has to have phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, and comprehension. And I think we have to be careful that we're not picking programs that don't have all of that. I
Could you
think,
stop right there and repeat
yeah.
that, please?
So
Yeah, I wish I
the
could put
reading
that
rope,
in uh, flashing lights, but could you repeat that in flashing
sure.
lights?
When I went to hear him speak, he made a big point of saying that the reading rope includes phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, and comprehension. And you can't have one exclusive of all the other four parts. So when you're looking at a program, you have to make sure that you're able to do all the parts of the program. I think like the writing rope, it's the same thing. The writing rope includes grammar. I do think the kids need grammar. Maybe I'm old school, but I still think they need it. But they also need content. And you know what? If I had to do writing the way I used to do it in elementary school, with all the red marks on everything I did, I wouldn't want to write. So I do think it needs choice and voice. I do think the kids need to be able to write things they feel are really important. On the other hand, they also need to learn how to structure writing, which is what the writing rope is all about. Um, and I think like there is a process, and the kids should be following a cyclical kind of learning where they're learning things more than once and going back to it, which is what the rope represents, is that cyclical intertwine of like, how do I teach this? How do I go back to it? How do I go deeper? How do I go deeper? I think you have to be careful picking a program if it's only like a one size fits all and doesn't have that. Um, I do think that mandating a program does not fit the needs of every child. I was a big proponent of one program, I still am, but I also knew that some of the stuff in that program didn't meet the needs of some of the kids I needed. So, you know what? Using some of the stuff I learned somewhere else and bringing it in, or finding other vehicles to help, you're going to have to do that no matter what program you have. But what I know is that to ban a program that had success just seems crazy for me. And you know what? I'm very frugal, so it's a waste of money, right? Why spend money on something that you don't need? On the other hand, there are some places in the country um, that do need a program which has all of those four components. Um, and they do need like that structured literacy, where structured literacy to me is not just about phonics and decodable books. Structured literacy means they do need some structure in teaching phonemic awareness and phonics, because there are teachers that have no clue what that is. They do need fluency and they do need help with comprehension. Um, The other thing that I always worry about is that when you're, and I'm a big nerd. I do wear glasses. I do have a pocket protector. Anyone who's worked with me can tell you I am sometimes too data driven and they have to tell me to stop. One of the things that I worry about is I love quantitative data. I told you I am a numbers person. I love it. It's numbers based, countable, measurable data. I do see the asset in quantitative data. I find stuff out from tests. I can find stuff out from map testing, from iReady. I find valuable information in it. But then after I find that information, I need to be able to look and see why did this happen or why did they do so well? To me, that's what qualitative data is so huge, and you cannot lose it. Once you get the quantitative data of, okay, they do this well, they need some help in this, you have to figure out what exactly do they need help in and why. You can't forget your why. So I think that quantitative data, interpretation based, descriptive, it's relating to language. It's kind of thinking about interviewing, observing, conferring, watching the kids. That's going to give us our why. And as we put the quantitative data together with the qualitative data, you really get a true sense of the kids and what their next steps are. One of the things we have to keep in perspective is that you'll hear people say it's subjective and it's unique. But you know what? When people look at quantitative data, it's subjective and unique too. Yeah, we have the numbers, but everybody seems to have different interpretations, right? And I think we have to think about if we interpret it this way, now what are we observing to tell us what our next steps are? And we can't leave one out with the other because then it's kind of like you say you're having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but all you have is the jelly and you forget the peanut butter. They have to go together to taste good. At least that's what my son tells me. Um,
Well put, well put.
I think the last part is that you really have to be thoughtful about things and really look at all types of programs. One of the things I heard across the last couple of years is that schools aren't doing phonics. I'm going to tell you that in the Bronx, every one of my schools are still doing foundations. Like we haven't stopped. Um, we still do phonemic awareness and Haggerty and OG, and there are problems with every one of those programs, but there's beautiful things in it too. We're still doing Tim Rosinski. We love singing. And I still think singing and music is the way to a child's soul. And it teaches them not only reading, but it teaches them to love things and to love each other. And it gives them ways to express themselves in writing. Um, and I think you can't make a blanket statement about the world in terms of like, this is what they don't do until you actually look at and see what they actually are doing and how successful or unsuccessful it is. So I hope that answered your question. I
Oh,
don't believe in mandates. I'm not the type to follow the rules. Um, but I do believe some of the mandates will help some in some schools in some places. I did help write the standards. I do believe in the standards. I believe in people's interpretations are a little different because the standard is not a curriculum. The standard is not a measurable curriculum. It's the strategies that you need. The standard to me is a skill, and the strategies that you need to get to that skill is what we should be measuring and looking at with any program. So, banning, no. Give people choice, give them the opportunity. Teachers know there are educators there. Um, there are people leading this way. Let them choose what they need to choose based on the data, based on what works. And see, you know what's the best type of data is when you walk into a classroom and you see kids smiling, talking, reading, engaging. Um, and that's just a beautiful thing. It's like an orchestra playing beautiful music.
okay. Wow. Well, far-ranging thoughts here, and I'm rather sure that there are thoughts. I'll try to get together a little list of some of the, hey, make sure you're doing these things. But really well done. So thank you so much. I always give people a chance at the very end to say, did we leave anything out? Is there something that we got to say or that you got to say before we wrap it up? So anything?
So there is one thing, and since I'm talking to people, um, I hate writing. I told you that. But what I see across the country is writing is taking a second step to actual reading. And when kids write, they learn to comprehend and read. So when you're planning your curriculum this year, look for the writing work that happens within a curriculum or do writing work across the year because you can't forget the kids do need to put pen to paper and write. And then the second thing I do want to say to people is have fun. Like, don't forget the FUN in teaching.
Okay, what a perfect way to end. Okay. Well, I need to switch I hope I don't, I need to switch my view thing over so that we're both on the screen again. And there's one last tradition in a Bomberito interview, you probably know it, and that is the Zoom wave goodbye. So you've already got the big smile. So how about a nice wave? And thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.
And